here, and as per Peter, who's leading this team today in terms of organization and overlooking the setup. He's told me that we are live. I know this wasn't announced earlier, but he decided to keep it a secret, which we love that secret because we wanted to see each other. So for those who are watching us at home and those who are here, I want to say we feel honored to have been chosen to be the people to share the information that we have about basically about the visas. And to begin with, I would like to say what we're going to share here is general information only. It doesn't pertain to your individual circumstances. So for each and every one of us, we know like everybody's story is different, everybody's circumstances is different. So once you need to have your own individualized care or visa pathway and all those personal consultation, then you will have to do a private consultation to any one of us. But we are here today to share the general information and to help us navigate out of the roundabout in time. By that I mean, we've migrated into this country. Most of the Kenyans, we come here on student visas. And so we pride ourselves in education, and there is a lot of people who have really done very well in that skilled area, and I'm one of them, and there are many of us of the community that you're aware of. So for those that have come here, the reason why we are doing these info sessions is to help us to remain legal on the visas that we are on, and to make informed choices on the visa pathways that are available and legal in Australia, so that you don't waste a lot of time doing from one visa to the other just to for the sake of convenience. So we want to make sure that we are able to be in student visa the shortest time that is possible, and get you onto skilled visa or a permanent residence, or whichever choice that you take, but you make your informed choice. So thank you again, and I'm not gonna say much. My name is Betty, for those who don't know me, sorry, the introduction is coming late. I've been in this country for the last 12 years now. Time goes so fast when you're having fun. I'm a mother of 2 boys. I migrated as a student. So I did 3 years of my bachelor's. I came from Kenya as a nurse. For those who watched my other video and those we've met in other forums, I was a nurse in Kenya, migrated here, did not have the information, had to do the nursing course again for 3 years, and then went into skilled migration and got my permanent residency, and now a citizen here. So after I went into, of course, after I finished my nursing, it wasn't hard. But had I known, I wouldn't have done a whole 3-year course if I had the information that you're privileged to have, and I would have saved around $60,000. So this information, there's a saying that says you only know what you know, and you can only use, wisdom is applying the knowledge that you have. So I think spending time to get valuable information and then applying that knowledge, as we all know, is going to save us a lot. So today I'm here with the rest of my team, Yusuf and Sophie, who are going to talk about the business that we do, and they will be in the education part, and I have the real deal people here telling us about all the other kinds of visas and how we can navigate them. So welcome, Yusuf, and to take us to the next.
Thank you, Betty.
Have the mic.
I've got a loud voice already, so I don't know if I really need this microphone. Welcome to the Kenyan community, Melbourne. My name is Yusuf Haddad. That photo was taken 15 years ago, so there's been a few more grey hairs since then. I'm a founding director of Immigration Law Matters, along with Sophie. We've been in this industry for a very long time, and we've seen a lot of changes come through in visa subclasses and government policies. And from what I can summarise throughout all these years, migrating to Australia is getting tougher and tougher, and I think we all agree with that. My background is Lebanese. We migrated, my family migrated when I was a year and a half back in 1976 from Lebanon, right at the start of the civil war there. Back then the government was giving away visas easily, so we came on permanent visas, but now it's a lot different. Interestingly, we're at a good time for migration, and I say that because obviously our borders have been closed for the last 2 years. No one's been coming or going, but of the last budget, the government has announced that for the 2022-23 migration year, the program numbers are set at 180,000 people that will be coming to Australia, followed by 216,000. And of that 180,000, 110,000 places are allocated for skilled migrants, whether that be skilled visas or employment visas or global talent visas. The majority of that makeup is skilled professionals. So it is an interesting time of the year for migration because the borders are opening up. We've heard a lot about how there's a shortage of labour, cooks, chefs, hairdressers, but it's still tough. Prior to the current 482 visa, there was a visa called the 457 visa, which is a very popular work visa that most students came and then graduated and went on to the 457 visa. The reason why the 457 visa was popular is because it didn't require work experience. Whereas now with the 482 visa, the natural progression from finishing school and then getting work sponsorship is tougher because now you need 2 years work experience. And it has to be paid work experience. So that transition from migrating to Australia on a student visa to a work visa has become tougher. We're still seeing changes to state occupation lists. They're gradually opening up. During the pandemic, they were only sponsoring applicants who were in Australia and had job offers and living in the States, but that's gradually opening up. Victoria, unfortunately, has the most restrictive state nomination policies. Whether it be from a business investment point of view or a skilled migration point of view, and I'm personally hoping that come November when the state elections are on, there is a change of government and we have a more open and more inviting state migration policy, because I still believe that Melbourne and Victoria is the best state and city in all of Australia. My role with Immigration Law Matters, other than a founding director, is I handle complex visa cases, whether they be visa refusals or cancellations, court appeals to the tribunal and to the federal court, all family stream visas, partner visas, complicated partner visas, parent visas, tourist visas, business and investment visas, and employment visas. Sophie, who's going to be talking about the skilled and employment visa side, that is her specialty. She specialises really well in skills assessments. Being a former engineer herself, her number one specialisation is engineering, but she's also highly capable with IT assessments, trade assessments. So we do a lot of skills assessments for applicants who want to progress to the skilled and employment visa category. So I will call up Sophie to come and have a word about her specialisation, and then after she finishes, I believe Betty will talk about the student visa program, and then to try and make it interactive, we will invite everyone to ask any questions that they may have and continue there. So I'll give it over to Sophie.
Hello everyone, my name is Sophie, and as Yusuf, do I need this? Okay.
So we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, sure. My name is Sophie. As Yusuf said, I migrated to Australia myself as a electronic engineer. And when I came here, it's a long story that why I didn't pursue that career and I decided to do migration. But I'm happy with what I've been doing and helping so many migrants in the last 15 years. As Yusuf said, I mainly do skilled migration and skilled graduate visa and all of that. And it's really important to be well informed and know what your plan is in advance. So a lot of students, they come and see us when their course is finishing in 1 month, for example. And so in a lot of cases, if you leave it to the last minute, there is very limited in the stuff that we can do. But if you come in advance, you have a plan in the beginning. Or a lot of students, like myself, for example, when I came to Australia, I didn't come on a student visa, but I already have a degree, a qualification from Iran. I'm from Iran, and I already had a work experience, so I didn't need to actually study here to get permanent residency. Because a lot of students think that if we studied back home, we have to come to Australia and start from zero, but that's not the case. And that's my job. When a student come, but if you are well prepared and you come and see me in advance, then we can basically assess your overseas qualification and work experience rather than waiting for you to finish your education in Australia. So for us to assess to see if you have any option. So I think I will start with, because there are obviously a lot of skill migration skill category. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I have prepared basically some of the most popular one with the student. But Betty, do you want me to start with TR, yeah? Okay. Because later on, Betty, we talk about the student visa, but so this is basically after you finish your student visa. So the most popular visa that I think a lot of students know about is temporary graduate or subclass 485 visa, which is the most common visa that a lot of students apply for after they finish their education in Australia. So make sure that, again, you don't leave it to the last minute. You must have finished your degree not later than 6 months before we lodge the visa application. Obviously, you must be under 50, and you must have finished your qualification in Australia minimum 2 years of a CRICOS course, registered course. So this temporary graduate visa has 4 different streams, as you can see. The first one is graduate work stream, post-study work stream, and these 2, they have been added recently, the second post-study work stream and the replacement stream. So I'm going to talk about each stream a little bit because they are different. So the first one is for students who have completed a degree, a diploma or trade occupation as a result of studying for at least 2 academic years in Australia. So there is a list of occupation that so when you come and see me, I have to basically check your qualification and choose occupation for you for this stream. But luckily, from 1st of July this year, the government is trying to help a student who's been affected by COVID. So from July 2022 until end of June 2023, this is not a requirement. So it's basically easier for people who even study the trade occupation to get this visa because they don't need to nominate an occupation. And as a result, they don't need to have a skill assessment. But after that or before this period, you needed to have a positive skill assessment before you can actually lodge the visa application. So then obviously you need to have adequate health insurance for you and your family. You have to apply for an Australian police check. You must have enough English, the minimum score of 5, overall 5 with minimum 4 in each band for IELTS, or PTE 36 and with at least 50 and with minimum score of 36 in each branch for PT academic. So for this visa, you can actually stay in Australia for up to 18 months. But again, because of the new improvement that the government is doing to this visa, you can stay up to 24 months for the visa that were granted from December 2021. So the second stream is post-study work stream. So this is mainly for students who studied a degree, who got a degree from Australia. Obviously, your first student visa must have been granted after November 2011, otherwise you're not eligible for this visa. So again, the same as previous stream, you must have studied at least 2 academic years in Australia, and you must hold either of these degrees. So a bachelor degree, a master degree, a doctorate degree, master work, coursework, or research, all of that. So it has to be a minimum a bachelor degree. So if you did a diploma or trade qualification, you are not qualified for this stream. So the same as the previous one, you have to obviously provide evidence of health insurance, evidence that you provided for AFP, and English. So all of that is the same between two. And the stay is between 2 to 3 years, depend on the length of your study. So if you studied for 2 years, you will get the TR for 2 years. If you studied for 3 years or 4 years, so it will be similar of the amount of time that you actually studied. So so there is now a second basically post-study work stream. This is kind of new. Only people who hold a post-study stream visa or replacement visa are eligible for this pathway. So the government designed this to basically help students that study in regional Australia to stay longer in Australia. So this is an incentive that the government is trying to attract more students to go and live in regional and study in regional Australia rather than just the main city. So basically anywhere, most of the location of Australia outside major cities of Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane is considered regional or designated area for this purpose. So if you studied so you must have been studying and living in designated area to be eligible for this pathway. So if you lived only in category 2 area, which is cities and major regional centre like Perth, Adelaide, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Canberra, Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Wollongong, Illawarra, Geelong and Hobart, then you will get additional 1 year on your 485 visa. Anywhere else, basically, so let's say, for example, in Victoria, if you studied and lived in Ballarat, you will get additional 2 years of your visa. So as I said again, this is a good chance for students because a lot of students just like to go and live in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. But unfortunately, it has become harder and harder for students to live in major cities to get to TR or even skilled migration later on because there are more incentive for a student to live in regional area. And that's one of the things that the Australian government designed to send the students to live in regional because you get more on your TR, which means that the good thing about the TR is that you can live and work and study. You can do whatever you want. And it will be wise for a lot of students to use that year, either 2 or 3 or 4 years that you have to gain work experience. Because later on, when you want to apply for any visa, skilled migration or employment visa, you need work experience. And that's why this visa is very helpful. And obviously, if you are in regional, then you have more of this visa. So the replacement stream is mainly for students who have been affected by COVID-19 travel restrictions. So because some of the students were overseas and our border was closed, the visa was granted, but they couldn't even come to Australia to actually use the visa and all of that. So the government has made this visa for a student that for the current and former temporary graduate visa holder who lost time on their original visa due to COVID-19 travel restriction. The application must be made before 1st of January 2027, and so you must have held a relevant temporary graduate visa that was granted before 15th of December 2021, because obviously since January that the border were open, we didn't have any restriction, but before that, for that 2 years that the border were closed, if anyone has been affected by COVID, then they can apply for this visa, and usually between 18 and 5 years, you can basically get this visa. You will receive the same grant period as your previous visa. If you were previously granted a post-study work visa for 2 years as a result of your Master of Coursework qualification, you will now receive 3 years. If you were previously granted a graduate work exchange visa for 18 months, you will now receive 2 years. This is a temporary measure. And so Hong Kong and National British, they can stay up to 5 years. So, the next and the most important visa that I do for a lot of my clients are general skill migration visa. So the purpose of the general skill migration visa to attract highly qualified skilled migrants. Eligibility is based on your skill and qualification, including your age, occupation, education, work experience, and English and partner skill if applicable. So Australia skill migration is a progressive case. A lot of people come and see me and they ask me how long does it take for you to basically get this visa? It's not a simple question to answer because as you can see, there are 5 different stages involved in getting a skill migration visa. And a lot of it, it's really not, there is no set definition of time, even introduced by the Department of Immigration. So even if you ask them, they can't really answer this question because it just changed. So the first and the most important stage that I do is a skill assessment. So at this stage, we have to basically match your qualification and work experience. If you have any qualification and work experience from overseas, so the first thing is I have to look at the occupation list to see what is the most suitable occupation according to your qualification and work experience. So that's the first thing we do. And then we have to see which skill assessing body is assessing your qualification and work experience. And then for that assessing body, like for example, if you are an engineer, you will be assessed by Engineers Australia. If you have your degree from overseas, you have to write 3 engineering projects and other obviously document. There is a lot of document involved. So, but the good thing is because I'm a former engineer myself and I've did this process, so I know exactly what's involved, and we provide a lot of sample with the application for our clients. So they have a clear guideline. They know exactly what they have to write. But if you studied, for example, your engineering degree from Australia, because it's recognized, you don't have to write engineering project. So, or for example, let's say, for example, you're a trade qualification, you're a chef or a cook, a plumber. So again, you need a qualification either from Australia or overseas. Overseas qualification is also accepted, and employment. The only thing that we struggle with a lot of trade qualification from outside Australia is the evidence of employment, because most of trade, they need to have at least 3 years full-time employment. And so in a country where the employment, they're getting paid in cash only, it's a bit hard to prove it. So, but there are other things that you have to provide to basically satisfy the requirement of paid employment. So when we go through the first stage, which is a skill assessment, the next one will be EOI and a state sponsorship. I will talk about it later in detail. I just want you to see the different stages that are involved, and so each stage, it will take different time, and a lot of it is unfortunately out of our control because we are dealing with government organization. And the stage 3, so after we basically lodge the state sponsorship and submit the EOI, if you're lucky and you receive an invitation to apply for the visa, then we submit the last stage, which is visa application. And then we have to wait until your visa is processed. And then the last stage is the decision of application, the decision of the outcome of the application. So why you should use our firm for Australian skill migration? So the first one is to identify the most suitable occupation for you, because we don't have just one occupation list. I mean, it used to be easier in the past because there was only one occupation list, and then you just go and choose occupation. And plus the occupation list in the past, it has a lot of occupation. But during the last few years, they have reduced and removed a lot of occupation from the skill occupation list. And now it has been divided to 3 categories. So the first one is the medium and long-term strategic skill list, called MTSSL, and the short-term skill occupation list, and the last one is the regional occupation list. So obviously the first one is the best occupation list to have, because it gives you the access to all of the visa. But if you have an occupation from the second or the third one, there are only certain visa applications that you can apply for. So this is the main thing that we do, because we have to make sure that your qualification and work experience matches with at least one occupation in the list. There are people that actually send me their resume. After I go through their resume, I can see that, for example, what they studied and what they're working, it doesn't exist in the occupation list anymore, in either of the 3, because we will always check 3 of them. It doesn't exist, so I have to simply tell them that you're not eligible, because your occupation doesn't exist in any of the occupation list. So that is really important. And some people, like, you may think that why is it so important? Like, some people, they know, for example, the occupation, they have a job and the name of the job, but that is so different in back home. That's very different from what it is in Melbourne. It's different. So we have to basically find something that it's close to what you studied and your qualification, but still, we can still find it in the occupation list. So after we basically identify your occupation list, then we have to talk to you, and obviously we have to calculate your points to see how many points you have, and then what visa, correct pathway and visa subclass we can choose for you, because not everyone can apply for all the visa, all the possible visas. So it's important that what visa application you're actually eligible for, and that's what we tell you in the beginning. So I think I explained this in the past, that your skill assessment is really important, because it basically, based on the skill assessment, if your skill assessment is rejected, there is nothing we can do or anyone else can do, because that's skill assessment is basically common in all the skill migration pathway, which we talk about I will talk about the different subclass later, but all of them need a skill assessment. So, which is why it's so important that it is done properly, and so you provide all the document correctly from the beginning, so they don't have to ask you for all document, or some assessing body, they just reject the application if all the documents are not presented in the beginning, they can just reject the application. So obviously our experience and knowledge, because we've been doing this for a long time, it will help you to eliminate any risk in that area. Some people ask us, what do you do? Do you just fill the application form? I can do it myself. But so you can see that that's not the case. We actually, especially for all the skill visa, we will provide sample to our clients, so they have a guideline, they know how to prepare the document. Because, for example, giving me a work reference to say that this person has been working for this company for this period of time is not satisfactory. There are other factors that all the skill assessing authority they're looking for. So when you work with our firm, we make sure we actually give you sample and guideline how to prepare your document. And when you give us the documents, I go through them to make sure it matches. And it's sometimes I have to basically send a resume or a work reference to my clients 5 or 6 times until we actually get it right, because we have to make sure it addresses everything that they're after. Otherwise, it will be just waste of your time, because they're going to ask for it. So we make sure that we provide it from the beginning. So obviously EOI, I don't know if you probably have heard of it, expression of interest is very important. Again, it's not as simple as just putting all your information, because any information that you actually provide in EOI, it has to be correct. Otherwise, so if you, for example, overclaimed points at EOI, you will receive an invitation, and then you submit a visa application, but the visa application will be refused because you claim points that are not true. Which is why it's so important that, like, some clients come to us and say, okay, I will do my skill assessment and EOI myself, you just do the visa for me. We don't accept that. It's just because we need to go through your EOI to make sure every point that you claim in EOI, you're actually eligible for it. Because if you are not, like for example, work experience. So if you work as a training for 1 year after you graduated, that is not work experience because it was not paid and it was not at the required level. It was just training. So some students, they don't know and they claim it. And obviously that will add to their points and they get excited. Okay, I got the invitation. They apply for the visa, you pay all the application fee, but it will be rejected. So, and that's why in EOI, they usually ask obviously about your basic personal information, what is your nominated occupation. By this stage, you need to have obviously your skill assessment, positive skill assessment, and then work experience, a study qualification, and your level of English, and detail of a skill assessment, of course. So once you complete the EOI, it will stay in the system and it is valid for 2 years. During these 2 years, the good thing is that we can edit the EOI. So for example, if some of our clients, they give me the IELTS 7, for example, and that will give them only 65 points. So I will submit the EOI for them. But if they try and get higher IELTS, and then I can edit the EOI, which will basically add more points to the application. So the points are, the point test criteria operates as time of invitation. So whatever points we claim, it must be still true at the time of invitation. Because as I said, the EOI stays in the system for 2 years. So that's why we ask our clients to update us throughout this process, because if there is any change in their circumstances, I need to update the EOI. So at the time that you receive an invitation, every claim in the EOI is actually true. Everything is correct. So the point can change depending on the age. For example, if you are, when I submit your EOI, you can be 24 and then you receive only 25 for age. But then let's say your EOI is in the system for 1 year and next year you turn 25, then automatically you will receive 30 points, which is the highest point for EOI. Or new English test, as I explained before, qualification, work experience. So yeah, so we just update basically your EOI during that 2 years that it is valid. If you are lucky, you receive invitation very quickly, so we don't actually have to keep updating your EOI. So yeah, okay, that's probably one of the most common questions that the student asks us, that how do they calculate the points? I didn't want to talk about the detail, like for example, age, how many points you receive for age or things like that, because obviously that is our job. And then when you come and see us, we go through your circumstances, your resume, and we tell you exactly how many points you have. But this is just for your information to see what are actually important. So age, obviously, and then English. And as I said, I would just say this about age because you receive the highest age from 25 to 33. So that is 30 points, which is the highest points that you receive for age. So it's better that so these years are very important. You should basically try to do it before you turn 33 because you receive the highest point. And then the English language, you receive so the basic English language that you need to have for us to actually submit the EOI is IELTS 6, competent English, IELTS 6. But you don't receive any points for it. So there is 0 points for IELTS 6, but it's a basic requirement. So anyone who wants to apply for any basically skill migration needs to have at least IELTS 6. And as you can see, overseas and Australian employment, because as I said again, a lot of students think they cannot use their qualification and work experience from overseas, which is not true. I've had clients in the past that he had a Bachelor of Engineering and work experience, and then he came to Australia on a student visa to do Master of Engineering. But he was lucky because he came and see me only 1 to 2 months after he arrived to Australia. So he thought he has to wait until he actually finished his master until he's eligible to apply for PR. But I told him that's not the case because you already have a bachelor degree in engineering from your home country and you have 3 years work experience, you have your English. So you have everything that I need. So basically while he was doing his master degree, we submitted his EOI, he got invited, we launched his visa. So he actually got his PR before he even finished his student visa.
Can I just interrupt you and say an important point for what Sophie's saying? Not all overseas qualifications are recognised in Australia. That is a very important thing to note. We've got a subscription to Australian International Education Portal, which actually tells us what overseas qualifications are as compared to Australian standards. Some qualifications are recognised, some are not. If they're not recognised, you will most likely not satisfy or pass the skills assessment stage for skilled migration. So that is another thing that we provide, is that we will check your overseas qualification. If it is recognised, we can continue. If not, we will say to you, you have to rely on your Australian study. Okay?
Yes, and then the education, which is what Yusuf talked about. Yeah. So you receive points for education. So it's like we obviously check to see your qualification either from Australia or overseas. Is it equivalent to a diploma, a bachelor, a master, or a doctorate? Because the points are different for each of them. And then you receive points for regional study. As I said, if you live and work in regional Australia, you receive 5 points, and obviously higher on your 5 visa. Specified education qualification, there are some, this is for a student who has studied master by research or doctorate student in certain field like engineering and IT or ICT security, that they receive basically another 5 points extra. And then the next one is the credential community language. So this is, I don't know if you heard the name of NATI. So there is this organization for translator and interpreter. They have different language. So if you can get a paraprofessional certificate from them, from your language to English, then that will give you another 5 points. Qualifications, I think that's the same as education we talked about in the past. A partner skill. So if you have a partner, if you're single actually, you receive 10 points. But if you are in a relationship, a married relationship, your partner can also contribute points if they can get IELTS 6 or if they have a positive skill assessment. It doesn't have to be both of them. So if they have only IELTS 6, they can give you 5 points. If they have both IELTS 6 and a positive skill assessment, it can give you 10 points. And then professional year, it is available for some course of study like engineering, IT, and accountants. They can do 1 year professional year after they finish their education, and that will give you another 5 points. And last is a nomination by states or relative sponsorship. So if you are nominated by states, it depends if it's for permanent visa or a temporary visa, because the points change. So I will talk about it later, but just in general, the nomination for regional area at the moment has the highest nomination, again, because the government is trying to give more incentive to a student to go and live in regional Australia. So you will receive 15 points if you have a relative living in regional Australia that sponsor you, or if the government sponsor you to basically live in a regional area of Australia. That will be basically 15 points. So these are the main basically visa for general skilled migration that I've been doing for a while. The first one is the skilled independent visa, 189, which is very popular and everyone loves this visa because you don't need anyone to sponsor you. So it used to be easier, I would say, to get invitation for this visa. But at the moment, because of the competition, it has been becoming really difficult to actually secure invitation for this visa, unless you have really high points, like I would say 90 points. If you have 90 points, which is really a lot, I forgot to say in EOI section, the minimum points that you actually need to have for your EOI to be considered is 65 points. So that's 65 is the minimum points you need to have. Obviously, the more points you have, the higher chance you have that you actually receive an invitation to apply for the visa. But as I said, because 189 is a very competitive visa and everyone loves it, because it's a permanent visa and you can live anywhere in Australia, it's very competitive. You need to have at least 90 points. And then the second visa is a skilled nominated visa, 190. which basically needs a state in Australia to sponsor you. Again, this is a permanent visa, one of the second popular visa, but it needs a state to sponsor you. And the last visa is 491 visa. This visa is provisional. It is granted for 5 years. So you need to be either sponsored by a state or sponsored by a relative who is living in regional area, basically. So after this visa is granted, I will talk about it later, because this is just an overview of all of them, and then I will talk about each of them. So the first one, you can live and work permanently anywhere in Australia. You don't need a sponsor or nominator. You obviously need to have occupation on the relevant occupation list for this visa. And you need to have a positive skill assessment in your occupation. You must be invited to apply. So after you receive invitation, after we submit your EI, and for all of the actually skilled visa, you must be under 45. So if you are 45 or above, you are not eligible for any of these visas. And so you must be able to score at least 65 points, and you must have at least competent English, which, as I explained before, it doesn't give you any points. So a lot of my clients, they realistically need to have at least IELTS 7 or PTE 65. The next visa is a skilled nominated visa, 190. So you need a state government to sponsor you. Only the first 2 years you need to live in that state, but after that you're free to live anywhere in Australia. So live and work permanently anywhere in Australia. So yeah, every state, they have their own occupation list, and they have their own procedure of how we can actually apply for the state sponsorship. It's a bit complicated. But so usually when we have the positive skill assessment, we will check all the states, because the state can change their list all the time. So we have to check on that day to see, for example, if you're an electronic engineer, we have to check to see what state are actually sponsoring electronic engineer and what are the conditions. If you meet those conditions, then we apply for it, and if you're lucky, they will accept you, and as soon as they accept you, you will receive an invitation to apply for the visa. And so the same thing, you need to have occupation on the relevant skill occupation list, have a positive skill assessment, be invited to apply, you must be under 45, score at least 65, and you must at least have competent English. So the skilled work regional provisional visa. So for this visa, you must be nominated to apply by a state or territory government, or an eligible relative must sponsor you. So who can sponsor you? Like the relative that sponsor you, they need to actually meet some requirements. They must be at least 18 years. They must usually be residents in a designated area of Australia, be an Australian citizen or permanent resident, or an eligible New Zealand citizen, be your eligible relative or your partner eligible relative if your partner is also applying for this same visa. An eligible relative can be either a parent, a child or a stepchild, a brother, sister, an aunt, uncle, a nephew, niece, I don't say all of that, but grandparents, a first cousin. So all of these relatives, if they are living in regional Australia, they can sponsor you for this visa. And so don't forget, you must also live in the same state that they have sponsored you. And the other criteria for this visa is to have occupation on the relevant skill occupation list, have a suitable positive skill assessment, be invited to apply, be under 45, at least 65 points on your EOI, and at least competent English. So for this visa, obviously, you can stay in Australia for 5 years. You can live, work, and study in designated regional area of Australia. And then after 3 years of living in designated area, you are eligible to apply for permanent residency. And so during that 3 years, you can really, as soon as you have this visa, you can apply for any other visa in Australia, because the government actually wants you, if you are taking the space for this visa, they want you to live in designated area for at least 3 years before you are eligible for permanent residency. It's a good visa for people who don't have enough points, because if you have high points like 90 or 95, you don't have a problem, because you can apply for either 191 or 190. But some clients that they don't have many years of work experience, or their English is not 7, they have no other option to apply for this visa, because the state nomination will give you 15 points, which basically increase your points, so increase the chance of you receiving invitation. Okay, so the last visa, this is actually the last visa I'm going to talk about, is the visa that Yusuf briefly talked about, which used to be very famous by a student, because a student could finish their education and then apply for this visa, because it didn't need a skill assessment and it didn't need work experience. But the government changed it a few years ago to make sure it basically has the same standard as other visa, because for other skill migration, really, you need at least 1 year experience for most visa. So the temporary skill shortage visa subclass for it 2, you need an employer who is willing to sponsor you. And so basically it is for employer that they are looking for occupation that they can source from the local markets. So the TSS visa stream has 3 streams. The first one is the short-term stream. The difference is it depends what is your occupation, and that's why your occupation is so important. I mean, for us, identifying your occupation is very important, because based on that occupation, we have to see what are these 3 streams you can actually apply for. If so the first stream, short-term stream, you can only stay in Australia for 2 years. You can apply for the second one, of course, but the visa will be granted only for 2 years. But the second one, the medium-term stream, you can stay in Australia for 4 years. So, for example, if you are an engineer, an IT, and like accountant, most of the professional occupation, they are in this category. So you can basically get the visa for 4 years. And the last one is labor agreement stream, that you can stay up to 4 years, but that's usually for employer in regional Australia that they need, I would say, less skilled worker that they cannot find in Australia. Then they have a labor agreement with the government to basically bring overseas worker, or basically sponsor overseas students from Australia. So the 482 visa obviously has 3 main stages that we do. The first one is to basically set up the sponsor as an eligible sponsor, which is called sponsorship. So the sponsor the company must be actively and lawfully operating in Australia. They must not be just hiring overseas worker. They mainly has to be actually employing local worker. So, and after that, we do the nomination. The nomination, what is very important is they want to make sure that the position is actually a genuine position. So there is a lot of document involved that we have to provide to basically satisfy the government that it's a genuine position. It's not created just for the purpose of the visa. So there is this employer that is in really need of having this skilled worker, and obviously we have to provide all the evidence to prove that. And the last one is visa application. So yeah, the basic eligibility is here for the visa application. So you must be nominated, obviously, for a skilled position by an approved sponsor. You must have at least 2 years experience in your field, which was not the case in the past. And this is why having that TR after you finish your student visa is very important, because you can gain the experience in Australia. But if you are from overseas, and you have that 2 years overseas, it's also acceptable. It doesn't need to be from Australia. 2 years relevant experience, it can be anywhere. And so during the time that your visa is in effect, you can only work for your employer. There are some exceptions, like doctors, for example, they can change between clinics, but most of occupation you can't really change. So as soon as employer sponsor you and the visa is granted, you have to stay with your employer, and so you must work in that nominated position. So if you were sponsored as an engineer, you can't just change and go and do accounting, for example. You just have to stay in that occupation for that period, and you can't change your employer without informing the department. You can, if you change your employer, the employer has to actually notify the Department of Immigration. They give you 60 days to find another sponsor. Otherwise, your visa will be canceled because obviously these are temporary visa. And you need to meet the minimum English requirement, which is IELTS 5. It's actually easy. The English is easy. And some occupation, like, for example, trade occupation, they need a skill assessment. But the majority of professional occupation, they don't need a skill assessment, which is make it easier for this visa. So after, I didn't talk about the ENS, and because I didn't want to talk about all the visa, but I just wanted to say that for 2 visa, after you work for your employer for 3 years, the employer can then sponsor you for a permanent application. And that's how you get your PR through the sponsorship. So you need to work for the employer for 3 years.
If the occupation's on that.
Yes. And yeah, that's obviously all the visa that we do. So yeah, that's about it for me. Any question or?
We'll leave the questions till the end. I think Betty wants to get up and talk a little bit about student visas.
Yeah, okay, Betty. We can do the thing later. Do you need this?
There's another one. So we're just going to leave the questions to the end. Oh, I put it on. We're just going to leave the questions to the end, and because we have a small group, I think time is not going to be a problem unless we are rushing to go somewhere. So anyway, I'm going to talk about student visas, and it's not too much because most of us have come here through student visas, and we are on the way to to changing the visas to skilled. I think you're heading more into SOFIs. But I guess this information is going to be relevant for those, maybe you're in partners or for the family members that you want to bring here, or you've come here through whichever agency. And there is a lot of stories out there, or a lot of people that say, oh, they've been applied student visa, they do not know, or, there's no information. That is what I'm talking about. So for you to get a student visa, whether you're here or in Kenya, you're required to have a qualification that you are targeting, and it also depends on the age. So if you're an entry level, if you've just finished your high school, so you go to meet the year 12 level of Australia, which from Kenya, if you've finished your high school or KCSE certificate, it is accepted to meet the level of year 12 in Australia. So you go to, if you're an entry level, so those are the ones that we call entry level, you can come to Australia and start with even certificate 4. Going to diploma, going to bachelor's, to whichever level that you want to get to permanent head damage, that is the PhD. So if you have done your certificate in Kenya, or you've done your diploma in Kenya, that means then your years have gone from 18, maybe you're in your 20s, then you're going to have to come, and if you've done your diploma, then you're going to come and do your bachelor's here. If you've done your bachelor's, then you're going to come and do your master's here. So it's progressive like that. And that becomes relevant like when we are doing your GTE, or your statement of purpose, we call it, or on the Department of Home Affairs, it's the GTE, and you are going to clearly elaborate on why you want to do that course, and you go to meet some requirements for Australia, or to convince the person who will be giving you that visa that you really have a dream for the qualification that you're coming to do in Australia. why can't you do this qualification in your home country? Or why is it important that you have to spend all that money to come, to travel all the way across the oceans to come and spend 3 or 2 years or 1 year for the qualification that you are applying for? So all those things are things that we'll look at. So your age will matter with the course that you want to do. So for example, if you're 30 years old, you're not going to apply to do a certificate 4. It doesn't work like that. So if you're 18 years old, we can start you with certificate 4, package diploma to degree. If you're 30 years old and you haven't had a bachelor's and you now want to start your bachelor's, it's going to be even hard for these schools at the moment to give you a letter of offer, because where have you been? What is your story? How does your story, and what have you been doing? You got to write all these GTE to the school, convince the school to give you a letter of offer. If the school accepts, then the story has to again tally with the case officer to give you a visa. So like Yusuf said at the beginning, it's getting tougher. Despite the COVID situation, the rules are getting much more tougher. So before you could apply, I remember when I finished, I just applied for my sister who was HR, and he was given a letter of offer to come and do nursing straight away without any question. But right now we have to write it's like 10 to 20 pages of SOP to the school before you can get accepted. So those are some of the eligibilities. You also have to have your English requirements. So again, the English requirements, some universities will not require your English requirement, and some will require your English requirement. So all that will be catered for on a case-to-case basis, and depending on which university we are applying, that will go with your qualification, your previous qualification, and the qualification that you are applying to come and study in Australia. So that is the English requirement is important. Another thing that is very important, and it is a challenge to our Kenyan community, is the finances. So that is the bank statement. So with the bank statement, they do say, I'm getting a lot of calls at the moment from within us that some universities are not asking for bank statement. Betty, can I get that university? So again, it depends with your personal circumstances, because it depends with the courses that you're doing. Is it in that university? Will your SOP align to the courses that are offered in that institution? And of course, the fees as well, and whether it's a semester or a trimester. So it's very personal, but again, you would apply to those organization, to that organization. Probably they don't want the financial evidence, but immigration would ask for the financial evidence anyway. So, so despite the fact some universities don't want to, some the visa case officer could ask for your financial requirement at any minute, and you have to produce it. So it's case by case as well, but it is a major requirement. So the biggest thing that I want to mention in this forum, and it is hitting our community hard, is provision of fraudulent documents, fraudulent financial documents. So we've had people, you want to bring your loved one, they say we need a bank statement. At the moment, student visa is around 50,000 Australian dollars for a single person. And then they go to wanaenda River Road. River Road is one of the streets. Watu wanaenda River Road, wanakuletea bank statement. Provide this bank statement, by the way, and this is for those who are at home, anyone listening to this. Once you provide fraudulent documents to Australia, you are banned from applying for any visa for 3 years. And that information is shared with other, it's Commonwealth. So really, it's not worth it. So River Road, avoid. And another thing, that any visa, I deal with students from kind of global at the moment. To be very honest, no Kenyan visa at the moment is granted, even for those who are here, without verification of financial documents. It was from the Department of Immigration, but now it's also being verified by the institution themselves. They are taking over the job of verifying these financial documents. And unfortunately, we get up to 20% that are fraudulent. What does that mean for us? Yusuf, what does it mean for our...
For our industry?
Yeah, or for a country.
Oh, for our country, obviously it's not...
For Kenya,
but just,
providing fraudulent documents.
It's not good for Kenya or anyone, but just on that note, there is a new change in the code of conduct for migration agents and lawyers as of a couple of months ago. It is now our duty to make sure that the documents we're providing with a visa application to be genuine and authentic, and if they're not, we can get into trouble. So I had a case last week where they'd come into Australia on a tourist visa, and one of the stamps on their passport was fraud. They claimed they went to Hong Kong and they put a Hong Kong stamp on there, and the case officer found out that it wasn't real. Not that I'm supposed to check and make sure the stamp's real or not, but things like IELTS documents, work experience documents, bank statements, they're verifiable, and 9 out of 10 times the overseas Australian Post will do local checking to make sure those documents are real. And just with your comment in terms of if you do get caught with bogus documents or fraudulent information, you'll be banned for 3 years. But even after that 3 years, you will most likely never get a visa to come back to Australia. Yeah. It is that harsh the way they deal with people who try to lie to the government. So.
Thank you. Yeah. So so yes, like what Yusuf is saying, it's happening. We get a lot of that. Avoid river road. Provide your genuine documents, your qualifications as well. If they're fraudulent, as some have been detected by the schools, and definitely it just makes our country to be assessed at a different level, and we can never come to level 1, because every time we come to level 2, we're going back to level 3, and it makes it hard. And as the rules and the regulations are getting harder anyway, so make it easier for yourself and give yourself another chance. If that pathway doesn't go, give yourself another chance by at least being honest. And
can I just add to that comment?
Yeah.
And it's good that the Kenyan communities come together to represent each other. I'll give you an example of what Betty's trying to say. Lebanon has the highest student visa refusal rate probably out of most countries. And the reason is because most Lebanese that came to Australia, whether it be on student visas or tourist visas, once they get here, they generally break the rules. And then it builds up a bad reputation with the Department of Immigration. It just makes it tough for everyone else from Lebanon who are genuine to come to Australia. So it's that minority of people that like to break the rules or get PR in an easier way that ruins it for everyone else, whether it be tourist visa for your family and loved ones. So I know we all want to come to Australia and we want to bring our family, but let's try and do it the right way so that we can think about everyone else that wants to come here. We don't want to create a bad reputation with immigration who will blindly refuse visas, because this country, they come and they break rules and this and that. So just be aware of that.
Thank you so much for your input, and that is what I'm going next. So after you've been granted your visa, so I was talking about providing genuine documents. And after you've provided your genuine documents, you've applied, you've gotten the school, you're here now, and you're studying, and you've arrived in Australia, taken this longest flight to this wonderful country. The next part is compliance. You have to comply to your visa regulations. And look, it's not that hard. It's not hard, trust me. I don't know how to say it better than that. It's not that hard. I did. It was painful, but it pays in the end. If you don't comply to your visa regulations and you think you're going to cut a corner, it's going to be very expensive, and it will result in outcomes that probably you didn't expect and could be catastrophic, including being deported, and people have been deported, or going into jail, and it has happened. So on student visas, please comply to all the visa conditions that you need to, which include, number one, who can tell me? Most of us have been on student visas here. Who remembers one? What are you supposed to do?
Notify address change. One.
You are not a student tonight. Who remembers one of the visa conditions that they need to observe? It's too cold. You're going to talk. You're going to talk to me, guys.
Is anyone holding a student visa here?
Huh? The working hours? Yes, that is very important. It used to be 20 hours, and now it's 40 hours. So you can work full-time on condition that you're attending classes, isn't it? So you need to have your academic progression as well. And that academic progression, by the way, just letting you and everyone else know, the school doesn't have to pick the phone and notify immigration. Oh, Betty didn't turn up to class today. It's or 2 classes you haven't attended. You are supposed to attend your classes. You don't have to make 80% per study period. The school doesn't have to pick the call. They just put a note on Prisms and it bing on the other end. Okay? So you got to know these things, and it's not Kenya where you're going to go, oh, I'm going to talk to the visa officer in the school or the student support and tell them, oh, you know, yesterday I had headache and da-da-da-da-da, these stories that we do. We all have unforeseen circumstances that will make us not go to class. You wake up another day and you really look through the window and I'm like, I'm not going to school today. But do the rightful thing. In this country, people listen, and people care for people. Notify the school that you are not able to attend class because of whatever reason. Have that courtesy. Check your emails. Address and emails are very important. I cannot explain, and I cannot say it any more clear than that. I get a lot of people, oh, the university contacted me like 3 times. How many months ago? 3. And now they have canceled my COE. Why? You didn't read your email. You've changed address. You've now moved to live with your boyfriend. And you've forgotten the girls. You know, love is sweet. But remember, the law is stronger. It will catch up with you. So when you move, you find love, it's cold, go, move, change address. Change address in everywhere is important in Australia. To the bank, to the school, start with the school. It's a visa requirement. To the bank and everything else, and also for your safety. Communicate to the school. Tell them that you are not going to school today because of that and that and that. Do your assessments for the week. Communicate to your lecturer because you will need character documents in case something, there is a blind spot somewhere that you didn't see. You will need someone to write on your behalf. You need your lecturer. You need your student support. You need your social worker. You need anybody else in the community to talk about you. So don't stay in isolation. Notify that address and ensure that you go to school and you keep to your visa regulations. Address, work. What's the other one? Your health cover. This is another, all of them are important. This is also very important, specifically to the men. I would say, when you come to Australia, please go and have a medical check. You go to the health cover, it's covered. I think you only pay $20 on top of that, or it's even free. Look for a doctor that does direct billing and get yourself just done the basic blood works. The reason being, we've had people who've come into the country. We know they do the basic checks before you hop on the plane. But as you get busy, you forget the most important thing, which is your health. I'm a nurse by profession, by the way, as I said. So I've seen the other side of the story. So we get busy, I can wake up, I can run, I can go wherever I go. I forget to check the bloods. Year 1, year 2, year 3. I'm a culprit, by the way. So while I'm saying this, I'm also talking to myself. But I have seen a very bad outcome, or several bad outcomes out of this. Get your blood checked, especially the boys, and have a relationship with the doctor as well. Because then you can get your checks, and you don't pay, just letting you know, you are not paying for anything else. Someone says, oh, but I didn't go to hospital because I thought I don't have the money, how much is it gonna cost? The cover that is part of the requirement to maintain your health cover covers you for that. So just go, even if you go to the emergency, you are covered. Sio kama Kenya unafika alafu wanasema NHIF amalipa. You just go with that card, it covers for your health. So have your blood works checked, have a relationship at least with the doctor, and get the basic things done every year. It's a visa requirement, and also for your health. The ladies, I think as we are good, when you feel a bit of pain, we can easily go to the hospital. I'm not being biased, but men's health deteriorate very quickly. They don't go to hospital very fast, and I've seen the other end, as I say. So keep your health covers and get your health checked. And always, also, while you're working very hard, remember to take a rest, have a day off, rejuvenate. It's part of your health. Another very common thing that we are seeing at the moment as well in our community is mental health. Mental health issues, which is coming due to being far away from home, isolation, and in the process of that, you arrive into this country, there's all these information Sophie is talking about. I've learned a lot as well. You're like, which one do I go? Then somebody tells you, oh, you need to be in this visa, you need to be in that one, you need to get married. A lot of information. There is this course. Oh, no, that course is useless. Who got you into that? A lot of stories happening, and you're far from home. You're not with mom, you're not with dad, you're not with your auntie. There is nobody. There is just a lot of information on the internet. Dr. Google, all your friends, people are just commenting, everyone is swearing. Then you're like, so what do I do? It's very easy to get lost in a lot of information. So seek professional guidance and follow the rules, as I said. Because if you seek professional guidance, like someone, I get a lot of calls. I did the townette session a few months ago, and after that, everyone is like, oh, but I need to change to be a nurse. I need to be a nurse so that I can get PR. Sophie has just taken us through a lot of other visas that are available that we don't know that we have, that even our families back home can have just by applying direct to Australia. Some of you have qualifications that already fit into the PR, like Sophie said, but you don't know. That's what I'm saying. You can only use information that you know. So what I'm saying is, once you arrive here as a student, align yourself, plug into the community for such information sessions, have friends. While you're changing address, at least inform somebody, get some connection somewhere, and get professional help, which is also offered in every institution. There is a department called student support. If you can't go to school, if you're struggling with your fees, if you're struggling with your assessments, do not wait to get a fail or a not yet satisfactory, because it's quite expensive. You're working hard to pay the fees. People at home are working hard to pay for that school fees. You know how much that costs when you convert it to Kenyan shillings. You know how much pain it is to do a shift, and you're paying for. I paid for my fees, so I knew what it costed and the pain. So while you're doing that, do not wait. If you can't understand anything, there is a department called student support. Please contact them on time and let them know that you haven't finished your assessment. What do I do? There is normally a way of how to extend your assessment submission, and they will give you extra guide, which is normally provided in the library for those who are in the university, and those who are in TAFE sector, there is extra support that they will give you in any of the institution in Australia. So si kama pale nyumbani ila unasema tu, oh, wacha nianguke. Someone contacted me, and when we went to have a look, had failed like 4 units from RMIT. Like my time was retching. How much that is? It's not like they were stupid. No. Forgot the dates. They did not just pay. You know, you come here and it's so much. I need to find where to live. I'm not getting along with my housemates. I have to find a job. Also, and so I bought a car. There is just so much. As I said, there's so much information. Please, in short, remember why you started the journey. Look at that visa grant and look at the conditions. Look at your school's letter of offer and just read and know what you're supposed to do. Keep it that simple and have a small network that can support you. Go to student support. Ask for extension if you cannot submit your assessment. And if you're struggling, if you're not sure, go to the library sessions, drop in for free and get help for free. I'm telling you, it's for free. Okay? They will help you on how to do your assessments. How to paraphrase. Don't copy paste from the internet. Sorry, I'm not. I know. I'm talking about education. So I know we are talking about visas, but this is how you're going to keep yourself legal. If you fail the 3 units, it's one statement to the department. You're not meeting your visa requirements. And look, in this country, if by any chance you cannot, as I said, there is help, and they are very lenient, but you just have to follow the rules, notify somebody. Someone is always out there to help, and you will get the help. And you will qualify, and we will come for the graduation. So be very mindful about that. And I'm very passionate in that area because I'm in education strategy, and I see very many students, and I'm on the other side as well, preparing the policies for student support. So I know the help that you can get, so utilize it. So comply to the student visa requirements. How I got into that, I was talking about mental health. There is there is a social worker in every school as well. That is part of the student support. If you feel your moods are changing, you're having difficulty in sleep, it starts with sleep, you're having problems with that, always seek help with your doctor. Go to the student support, and there is also a lot of psychologists, therapists around. Talk to somebody about it. There is a girl who came out loud in one of the sessions, Kenyan community session, and they said how they have fought with depression, how they've been on the other end, and they have come out. So talk to somebody. And while someone else is talking to someone, please always smile to someone who's passing next to you. If you see someone, just give them a smile and say hello. You don't know what change you could do to their lives, because we are all far away from home. And apart from that as well, we have arrived to another home. For me, I used to say home, but these days I'm like, I don't know, where is home? I'm a nomad, so Kenya is home, Australia is home. So when I'm here, when I used to go, okay, I met that black person, they didn't even smile at me when I smiled at them. Now I smile to everybody. Because what's the chances? I haven't been to Kenya since when? 2018? So am I going to wait to go smile to Kenyans? So smile to everybody. And then someone can share with you their problem. And you never know, just that one word that you're going to give may lead them to the next a positive turn into their lives. So be friendly and helpful. Finally, what was I going to say? So that is it about student visas basically. So mostly it's compliance, and the bogus documents is a big alarm. And last one, changing courses. As I've said in more than one forum, if you need to change your course as well, seek guidance on what course to go. Don't be swayed around into, like you find me, I'm a nurse, and I'll be like, do nursing. Look, I tell most of the people who are entry level, I go, start with nursing, you'll not go wrong. Because I'm a nurse and I love what I do. And also it's a science degree and it gives you millions of options. But not all of us are nurses, so I will give you the options of going to visas and everything else. Not all of us can do what I do, but you don't have to, like, there is this rumor and misconception going out there that you have to be a nurse to get a permanent residence in Australia. Yes, we need nurses, like we are short. But it doesn't mean that that is the only way that you can get visas. Sophie has gone through all those visas, and you could qualify into any one of them with any other qualifications. There are several qualifications. So even hairdressers, even hata watu wa kuchinja nyama wanahitajika. I don't know the English word. Butchers. The butchers. Yeah, you know back home, even that one, it's back in Kenya, like it's unheard of, but their qualifications, there is a lot of other pathways. So don't just rush and go start changing your course and you haven't really consulted. So consult with professionals, go to your career advisors as well in the uni. The career advisor will advise you based on what you provided on the SOP, and will try to steer you. But you are also welcome to add in, like you would say, okay, fine, I came to Australia, I wanted to do this, and now I have seen this, and I'm attracted to this job, and I want to change. It's not like you cannot change, but what I'm saying is make sure you're making an informed choice, not just rushing in because someone else has told you this, and then in the end, you hit the hard ground and you don't know what to do. So just be mindful about that. So I think that's it from me. And I'll let Yusuf to come and continue. And definitely we'll keep going with the student visas. The stories keep going. Yusuf, you're welcome.
Well, I guess the only thing I want to add to what Betty was saying is, for those of you who are here on student visa, or those who have relatives back home and are thinking about student visas, don't just rely on the education agent that's trying to sell you a course. Because at the end of the day, an education agent doesn't know about migration. They know about the commission they get from the university for selling you a course. Okay, so 9 out of 10 times we see a lot of students that come here to study something that is not beneficial. For example, a Bachelor of Business Administration. It's a very generalist degree that really, there is no specific occupation that is aligned with it. So, invest in a consultation with a migration professional, get their idea about what to come and study, then go back to the education agent who have usually got good relationships with universities. They can apply for it and get it all nice and good looking for you. But get that initial consultation with a migration professional, because they know which occupations are important, which degrees are important, and they'll be able to guide you, and then be comfortable investing that $90,000 for a bachelor's degree that will hopefully lead to permanent residence. I guess I want to wrap up with any questions that anyone may have. Doesn't matter how big or small the question is. Any visa category, any issues that you think are affecting you with the Australian immigration system, please, now's the time to ask. Yes.
Okay, I'm the International Students Liaison or representative.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of questions I would like to ask, but I've scaled them down to about 20-25. And these are, they are very, very important, because a lot of students get the general information and whatnot, but there's bits and pieces which are the most important parts that they miss that lead to the visas you're talking about.
Okay.
So,
did you say you got 25 questions?
Very important.
I'll tell you what I'll tell you what I'll do for you. I'll let you pick the top 5, and the remaining 20 you can email them to me, and I'll give you written answers from this. I don't think we've got time to answer
I don't need them. They need
25
them.
questions.
So if you send the answers to me,
No, to the forum or whatever it is that people can access.
okay. So now, So, how many times can a student be granted a graduate visa, and what avenues?
Yep.
So, how many times can a student be granted a graduate visa, and what avenues would you recommend someone who has already had a graduate visa?
Okay, so generally speaking, once only, but there are exceptions to the rule in terms of the visa categories that Sophie mentioned, whether you were stuck overseas during COVID and you couldn't come back and utilise the 485. But the general rule is once and once only. So you study your degree, you apply for a 485, and that is it. Once and once only.
Now that you deal with many visas, what avenues or options would you give someone who's been on a graduate visa and they don't know what to do?
That's a very broad question. So it really depends on their background. So their skills and qualifications, what they've studied, do they have any prospects getting sponsored by an employer? Do they have 2 years work experience in the occupation that we're going to choose for them? Is their occupation on the skilled occupation list? So really it's an individual assessment of the person's skills and qualifications. So it's a very hard question to answer. So it comes back down to the individual skills and qualifications of the person.
All right. An applicant has been granted a 5 years visa, 491, with a condition imposed on them that they must live and work or study in a regional area.
Did you say 491?
Yeah, 491.
491, yep.
Yes. So their concerns are, what are the impacts if they don't live and work in regional area? And from the day the visa was granted, the arrangement is that they'll be eligible for a permanent visa after living and working or studying there for 3 years. Now, since the visa was granted, does it affect the 3 years arrangement if they start living in the regional from the second year after their visa is granted? And can they return and work in the metro immediately after meeting the 3 years requirement? And if they're invited for the visa 491 and turn that invitation down, does it affect any chances of being invited for visa 189 or 190?
Okay, so the last part to the question is no. At the end of the day, an invitation is an invitation. So if they've turned down a 491 and they've got a 189 or a 190 option still in EOI, they will stay running. Yeah. All right, but it really depends on the points they have for the occupation that they have and how competitive it is. So they have to be realistic before they turn down a 491 to see whether they're actually going to get a 190 or a 189 invitation. My advice to clients is, whatever invitation you get, I would accept, even if it's a 491, because it still leads to permanent residence, especially if they're running out of a visa option or their visa's about to expire and they need to stay legal in Australia. In terms of the first part of the question, I think Sophie will answer that.
The first part, as I explained in the presentation, for 491 visa, it is a requirement to live and work in regional Australia for 3 years. So if, for example, the first year you did not live, and then you start from the second year living in regional, the clock starts from the second year. Because before you are actually eligible for permanent residency, they will check to see if you have minimum 3 years experience in regional. So no, the answer is no. I mean, you can't live 1 year in Melbourne and then 2 years in Ballarat and then expect the government to give you PR, because you have to live there for 3 years minimum.
And you must provide 3 years worth of evidence to show that you fulfill that requirement. It's not just a matter of ticking a box, yes, I lived in regional. They will ask you for evidence.
And now, can I come back to live in and work in Metro after the 3 years in regional?
They have to apply for the visa first,
yes,
for the permanent visa.
Yep.
I personally advise my clients to wait until that permanent visa is granted before you actually, leave to go somewhere else. But definitely not before they apply for the 190 visa. Sorry, for 191 visa, the permanent visa.
Okay. You have explained what a graduate visa is. Okay, let's forget about that one. In order to be granted and sustain a student visa, a student needs to meet and maintain the GTE criteria, which means they are only in Australia temporarily for reasons of studying and returning to their home country. What are the implications for a student visa holder or a student who has applied for protection, for a student visa, and at the same time they have applied either for protection visa or partner visa, which are permanent visas, indicating the intention to stay in Australia permanently, yet they are saying they're here on a temporary basis on a student visa or a student visa application they have made.
Okay, so let me get this right. They're already in Australia on a student
They are
visa?
Yes, or they have applied for
Okay,
one.
so a student, someone who's holding a student visa and they're in Australia and they want to apply for either a partner visa or a protection visa.
Or any other permanent visa.
Yeah, what are the implications for the student visa they hold?
Yes, or the application they've made, but they haven't been granted.
Good question.
Visa.
That's a good question. I get that question asked a lot. Essentially, if you're holding a student visa and you want to apply for a protection visa, it goes against the purpose of the student visa. So if let's say you're holding a student visa, you've applied for another student visa because it's running out, and at the same time you've applied for a protection visa, the 99% probability your student visa is going to be refused. So at the same time, one of the questions they ask you when you're applying for a student visa is, do you intend to stay in Australia temporarily? When you finish your studies, you're going to go back home. All right? If you tick, no, I want to apply for a 485 visa, and you're legally entitled to apply for a 485 visa, legislation says that they should refuse you because they want you to go back home. But you're still allowed to apply for a 485 visa and a skilled visa. So a lot of it is a paper ticking exercise. But holding a student visa and then wanting to apply for a partner visa, and let's say the partner visa gets refused and then you want to go back on a student visa, your student visa will be refused because you've got the immigration history which proves that you've tried to circumvent the migration channels by staying in Australia permanently, not completing your studies and going back home.
All right, a student visa is about to expire and they haven't received their completion letter or English results. This student lodges a graduate visa without an English test or completion letter, which they now provide to immigration about a week after applying for the graduate visa. What are the implications here, and do they still stand a chance to be granted the graduate visa?
That's a very good question, and the implications are very strong. The completion letter in itself is just a letter advising you that you've completed the course. But legally speaking, the 6-month rule you have from completing the course to applying for the 485, legally speaking, starts when you know you've passed your exams. So if you get notification from the university saying that you've passed all your exams, you don't need to wait for a completion letter. You've completed the course requirements, and that allows you to apply for a 485. But the English, there is no exemption for time after you've lodged. It must be provided at time of application. That is very important. So what Betty was saying before, and I think Sophie said before, plan for the 485. Do not leave things to the last minute because you will get undone. Even the Australian Federal Police clearance, you have to show evidence that you've applied for it before you lodge the 485 visa. So that's why with us, I don't know about other firms, come in for a free consultation, get that initial, those initial questions out of the way, make sure you're on the right track, and that way you're not going to get into troubles down the track.
All right. Does it mean that everyone who lodges an expression of interest gets invited to apply for a skilled visa? And at what point after lodging an expression of interest should one start getting worried about not being invited, and what options do they have or what steps should they start preparing to take?
Okay, answer that question. No, unfortunately, not everyone that submit a EOI will get invitation, because if that was the case, it would have been very easy. As I explained, it depends on your qualification and your points. So, for example, if you are an accountant and you have 70 points, there is a really low chance that you will receive invitation. And we usually tell our clients about this in advance. But if you are, let's say, one of those occupations that they're really in demand now, for example, nurse or a doctor, even with 70 occupation, you still have a good chance that you receive invitation. So the invitation, the EOI is valid for 2 years. So at what point do you get worried? It really depends if you are offshore or onshore, and if you're onshore, the current visa that you hold, when does it expire? So if, for example, your visa is about to expire in 2 to 3 months, of course you have to think about other option, because the EOI is not a visa application. So when we submit the EOI, it doesn't give you a bridging visa to lawfully stay in Australia. And that's why then you have to think about other options. So some students, they, if they're lucky, they find an employer who's willing to sponsor them, either in Melbourne or in regional Australia, or some, they have to continue studying. They would basically go on another student visa to continue study until they, either their circumstances change, for example, they increase their points, because I explained about all the points that can actually help you. Like, for example, you have IELTS 7, so your points is 70. So then your visa about to expire in 3 to 4 months, then they usually ask me, what do I do? So there are other things that you can do. For example, doing the NATI test will give you 5 points, so you will increase your points. Yeah, so you just have to, if you're unsure, you have to make sure that you always hold a valid visa, and you have to apply in advance, not one day before you think about, oh, my visa is about to expire tomorrow.
All right, about 3 more questions now. So, there are course programs that have got more skilled visa options and avenues than others, meaning that if you're doing a course with more avenues, you stand a better chance that someone doing a course with less avenues. How would a student know where their course program stands, and if they are doing one with less or more avenues?
That's a very good question. But the problem with that question is the advice that I give to that student today may change in 3 months' time. So the skilled occupation lists in Australia are not stagnant, they change over time. So what may be popular today in terms of an occupation in demand may not be in demand in 3 months' time. And the same with the state occupation lists. But having said that, IT occupations, trade occupations, engineering occupations, health and medical occupations, these have stood the test of time, have always been occupations in demand. Even accounting reached a point where, you needed a ridiculous amount of points to be invited, but it's still a medium-term occupation. Chef and cook, for example. Cook is on the short-term list, which means for a 482 visa it doesn't lead to PR, whereas chef does. And these lists, they change all over the time. So it's very hard to give advice to a client, study this because in 3 years' time, the occupation is going to be there and you're going to get PR. But there are courses that we can recommend in general to say that these are safe occupations.
Okay. All right. 2 more. Now, regression is where a student downgrades their course from a higher level to a lower level, like from a bachelor to
a diploma. Yeah.
And when that happens, the student's visa is at risk of being cancelled or future visa being refused. Now, is a student who is doing a Bachelor of Community Services, which is the degree level, I think level 7 or something, or level 8, they want to do a Diploma of Nursing, which is a lower level, but to remain at the same level with the Bachelor, they package their course, the Diploma of Nursing with the Bachelor of Community Services. does that keep them safe?
So if it's still packaged with the higher degree, why would they be going down?
No. What I'm saying is,
Yep.
I'm doing a Bachelor of Communications right now. I want to do a Diploma of Nursing,
Okay.
but that will put my visa at risk. Now, to be able to do the Diploma of Nursing, I package the Diploma of Nursing with the Bachelor of Community Services, and I start studying now the Bachelor of Nursing. So, how does that work? So initially I had one COE for Bachelor of Communications. Now I have two, one for Diploma of Nursing and another for Bachelor of Community Services.
So did you cancel the Bachelor of Communications?
Yes, I'm not doing that
So
anymore.
you've stopped studying that. Okay, so you're changing career
Yeah.
direction. Okay.
Yes. And levels.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the question there?
So, is the student still safe?
So the most obvious question is definitely no, because you are not meeting your requirements. You change the course and you are downgrading. So definitely, when you're doing your Diploma of Nursing, because you've gotten the information based on Diploma of Nursing, I'm sure many people will take because it's a 2-year course or sometimes 1.5. And so they take that course and then kind of a shortcut and they stop the initial visa. But when you are renewing your visa, you violated your whole GTE.
But I have a COE for Bachelor of Community Services at the same time, which keeps me at the same level.
You stopped going to that course or you're still going to that course?
No, you're not getting my question.
I think so.
I'm doing a Bachelor of Communications. I want to stop that and do a Diploma of Nursing. But that will be downgrading. But to keep myself safe and to remain at the same level with the Bachelor of Communications, I package my Diploma of Nursing with a Bachelor of Community Services. So I have two COE now. Yes.
Okay.
So does that still keep me safe?
Yes, because you will be safe because you're keeping you're maintaining your diploma. You still have your degree, but when you're writing your next GT and your SOP, it's going to be very difficult. But it's on circumstances, but it is going to be a little bit risky because you haven't kept to your initial story. But it doesn't mean it's going to be a no or it's going to be a yes, but you haven't kept to the initial story. On that part, I have seen students that come and they are doing a master's, for example, in accounting, and then they are told, look, it's very hard to get points. This just a case study on the same one, and they're told it's very hard to get your PR on accounting, and so they enroll in Diploma of Nursing because Diploma of Nursing take some institutions offer for 1.5 years. So they go into that 1.5 year course, and they still doing their masters of accounting or anything, So because they have the 2 years and they go to school maybe 1 or 2 times and they can work around it and they do both of them. So I've seen students that have done that and then just to give themselves pathways, and then when they are doing the 485, then they navigate to change the visa because they have a Diploma of Nursing. But again, as I said,
I think the answer to your question also comes down to how long you've been holding a student visa, how long you've been in Australia, how many times you've changed courses. We have a lot of Vietnamese clients, and we've had some cases where they've been in Australia 10 years on a student visa, and they will apply for the last student visa, and then the case officer will say, sorry, I'm refusing you because you've been here for 10 years, you've done 4 different types of diplomas and certificates. What is it that you want to study? We're refusing you. So it depends on the circumstances as well of each student visa holder.
Okay, I forget to renew my student visa, which I apply only 5 days after it's expired. How does that affect the assessment of my application?
for the student visa, there's a 28-day grace period for student visas who elapse and apply for another student visa. So you'll be asked to offer a reason as to why, but if it's 5 days after your student visa expired, you should still be okay.
So there is no any requirements that I need to meet for missing that 5 days.
If it's within the 28-day grace period of your visa expiring, you should be fine.
Okay.
That's why they have the 28-day grace period, because they understand that some students forget.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think a student has an overseas or even an onshore Bachelor of Architecture, and they want to do a Bachelor of Construction, or someone who has a Master of Public Health and they want to do a Master of Social Work. Word in the street is that one cannot be granted a student visa to do a second bachelor's degree or a second master's degree, and that their visa will be refused for changing their course path, their career path. Is that the case?
Okay, I'm a little bit confused. How many degrees are they holding?
No, I'm saying someone has a bachelor's degree,
Yeah.
and they want to do a second bachelor's, or they have a master's and they want to do a second master's.
In a different field, not in the same
Yeah,
field.
different fields. What is that their visa will be refused? One, why do they want to do a second bachelor's? And secondly, why they are changing their career path?
Yeah, I guess if you would just explain the reason, if the case officer is satisfied, it's like a GTE letter, you have to explain that why. For example, you can be doing a Bachelor of Architecture and then you're working, I don't know, like in accounting, and then you decide to do accounting. Then you can say, because of my work experience, I want to change my job.
Yeah, it's just like if you have a master's in construction, and then you want to come and complete a master's in business administration, you can explain or argue that the MBA is relevant to construction because you want that managerial and leadership degree to complement your chosen profession. So
many of our students want to change these courses, but they're so scared because they are told that their visas will be cancelled or they'll have their visas refused. Is that the case?
It depends on the circumstances, though.
But
If you don't have any, if your reason that you're writing the GT is not valid, in most cases it's not. If you just can't say, oh, because I don't like this course anymore and I like this course, then yeah, in most cases it would be refused.
But I think it also goes beyond that, and that is studying another master's going to be beneficial towards your PR aspirations? So, okay, yes, if you want to study just for the sake of studying, go for it. But is it going to help you get PR? That is the key question.
That's actually the reason why they're changing.
Yeah, which is why, before they make that decision, to get proper migration advice, to determine, is it going to help them get PR? With the qualifications they currently hold, is that sufficient for them to get PR? Or do we need to do something else? Before they make the decision, they should get the right answers.
All right, I guess that's it for now.
That's it?
Yeah, I had more, but
I'm surprised partner visas, protection visas, business visas.
it all comes back to a student visa and
Yeah.
how it affects their life.
And you said most of our community, they come here on student visas. And I think we've had a few cases of people who've gone to the pathway of protection visa, but not many. It's not a popular one.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone?
The partner visa is.
Yeah.
I have two questions. So the first one is, if you finish your course and graduate before the visa expiry, what do you exit the country immediately, or what happens?
Sorry, say that again.
I'm saying, suppose you finish your course before your visa expires.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to exit the country, or what happens? So for example, you have a visa that's...
You're in a student's visa.
Yeah, you're on a student visa that is 5 years long, but you finish that course within 3 years.
Sure.
And so you have 2 years remaining. Are you supposed to exit the country immediately, or what happens?
No. You have a valid visa that is still valid for another 2 years. If you happen to finish the course 2 years earlier than what it should be, you're still allowed to stay in Australia on that visa. You can still come and go as you please. But the problem that you have is if you've still got 2 years left on a student visa and you decide to go back home, let's say in 6 months' time, you decide to come back to Australia, at the airport, they're going to ask you, what are you coming to do? You're holding a student visa, but you're not enrolled in the course. So what will you say to the customs official? I finished my visa early, now I'm just coming to have fun. He's going to say to you, sorry, I'm going to cancel your student visa because it no longer fits the requirements.
All right.
So there's always that risk. But if you stay in Australia and you don't go back home, no one's going to stop you and say, hang on, you've got 2 years left on a student visa, but you're not studying, you've finished. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Your next question?
Yeah, the next question is, when you're applying for a student visa, there's somewhere you may say that, yes, I'm finishing this, I'm going back home. But in the middle of studies, you decide, well, I'm going to apply for permanent residence. Are they going to deny you a permanent residence based on what you had written?
You mean whilst you're applying for a student visa or after?
After you've...
Apply for a skill migration, for example.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. That's not. That's,
No.
Those visas they exist for students.
With student visas, as long as, and I shouldn't be saying this, but as long as when you're applying for a student visa, you satisfy the case officer that you are coming here to study temporarily and go back home, that's all you need. What you decide to do after the student visa, the Department of Immigration don't care. Right. Whether you want to stay or go back home or apply for another student visa, it's assessed at that time.
All right.
But if you're holding a student visa and you apply for a partner visa during that time, let's say the partner visa gets refused and then you say, I want to go back on a student visa, yes, then there will be implications.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
No worries. Ruth, all the way down the back.
Could you try to expound on the different options? Let's say someone came from overseas, their occupation was an engineer, so they have like 3 years and beyond of experience. Could you please expound on us on what options they have currently to get PR?
Yeah, all the options that I explained actually. All those visas are available for someone who's got a degree. So the first thing obviously is that you have to send me the resume. I have to look at their qualification and work experience. But yeah, first of all, we have to make sure the qualification is assessed as comparable to Australian bachelor degree, because for engineering, you can do diploma. It must be minimum bachelor degree, but not all universities are equivalent to the Australian standard, which is at least 3 years. So that's the first thing we assess, and then we also, I personally look at the duty that they've done as an engineer. So if you're a mechanical engineer or electronic engineer, like some people, for example, they're like electrical engineer, but they're working in, they fix air condition. That's not the engineering occupation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then obviously I have to go through their duties to make sure it matches with that occupation. And then I have to calculate their points. So if they have, let's say, 85, 90 points, obviously they are more suitable for the skill independent visa. Otherwise, we have to apply for one of those, the other two options, which require a state sponsorship. So either for 190, which is a permanent state sponsorship, or 491, which is a regional state sponsorship. So it really comes down to the points and whether or not we can actually get the positive skill assessment for them. Because as I explained, if we assess that your engineering degree is not a bachelor, it's an associate degree, which is like an advanced diploma, then you are not an engineer. Then you have to finish your degree in Australia before you can actually qualify as an engineer.
I think the best thing to do, Ruth, is just email Sophie the resume and she will have a look at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because like people's circumstances are different. Like if your friend, for example, has 65 points only, which is the minimum points, I'm going to tell you honestly that your chance is low, because that's only the minimum points. But if it's above that, or how they can actually increase the points, that's what we basically help our client with.
Just on that, it's not if you've already got a bachelor's degree or a master's degree back in Kenya and you've got 2-3 years work experience, you don't need to come and study in Australia to get PR.
They can apply from overseas. A lot of my clients actually, they apply from overseas directly. They don't come to Australia to study.
I think that is one thing our community are not aware about, that you can apply, and this is, actually I'm going to stand, sorry. This is one thing, even for those who are in Kenya, and even for the family members that are back home, you do not have to come and study when you already have qualifications from overseas that are in the skilled migration list. You can apply directly, like Sophie said, and you can get PR. So it's something that many people don't know.
A lot of people don't know. A lot of people think that the only door to PR is to come and spend $90,000 on a degree.
Yeah. Second degree.
What's that? Skill migration?
It's the
How long
same.
does it take if you apply from outside?
There's
It's
no
the same
difference.
process, the same processing time as it would be in Australia.
Yeah, there's
So
no-
skills assessing bodies, for example, Engineers Australia, what's the average? About 3-4 months?
Yeah, only you can fast track it and it will be 1
Yeah.
month. But they don't really care if you're overseas or in Australia.
State sponsorship, expression of interest, it really depends on the points that you have and the occupation. That can take 1 day to 6 months or even a year. The visa processing, 3 to 6 months. So on average, you can expect the whole process to take at least, I'd say 12 months on average. Yes.
But for the past 2 years, the states and the for the past 2 years, the states and the territories were giving priority to those who are onshore.
Who are onshore, yes.
And that's the thing. In fact, even now, that's what they look. Before they go for someone offshore, they'll have to look for someone onshore
True.
first. So that's the thing. It will take longer for someone with offshore because they'll have to look for someone with it, working or living in Victoria or studying in Victoria, something like that. Because even Victoria, things for the last financial year, we're not taking offshore applicants.
Yeah, and that's what I said right at the start of the program was Victoria is the worst state for nominating skilled visas, even for business and investment visas. Now that we're starting to see everything progressively open up, and that's why I said to you at the end of the year, I hope when there's a change in government in Victoria that they will become more lenient and more friendly towards students and investors and skilled migrants, that things start to change. I know WA has opened up their program, so things are starting to get back to pre-COVID.
But what you said, that's just because of COVID. So the last 2 years, nothing has been normal. So immigration was one of them. It's never been like that. So in fact, most of my clients for the last 10 years that I've been working, they're from offshore. They're actually, I process a lot of offshore skilled migrants, and they never studied in Australia. And in fact, sometimes, apart from during COVID, which I think the main reason that a lot of states prefer people in Australia was because our borders were closed. So they knew people cannot actually travel to Australia. Even if you have a visa, you could still not travel to Australia. So that's why they decided to take more onshore applicants than offshore. But in a lot of before that, and even now that things are getting back to normal, they prefer someone from overseas, like the engineer that with 8 years experience definitely get more points than an onshore student, for example, graduate with only 1 year experience. A lot of states, like for example, South Australia, a lot of time that they are sponsoring the applicants that they have more than 5 years experience because it's important for them to sponsor people with experience rather than just graduate from Australia. Okay, you have Australian qualification, but you don't have any work experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, then I had a question also on the same. How about if you want to do a skilled visa for people with courses, especially in the healthcare setting, where they need specific licensing by Australian bodies like maybe nurses, doctors, pharmacists, and all those. So will you be granted a visa, or you'll be told by first that you need to license this body or not? If you're a doctor, you have to do this exam first before
See, the health professionals are very different from the rest of occupation. All the other occupations like engineer, IT, accountant, trade occupation, all of them, they can easily apply from overseas and be granted the skilled migrants. But for a lot of health occupation, they actually need to come to Australia to basically complete. There are some, obviously, I mean, and they are different. Like, for example, the requirement for a doctor is different from the requirement for a nurse. So, and that's why when people send us their resume or they come for consultation, we have to look at your personal circumstances and tell you this is the pathway, the right pathway for you. But most of health occupation, they need to come to Australia, and they, the first stage for most of them is to pass a exam. And then after that, they have to gain local experience, supervised experience. Like, for example, doctor, they need to find a hospital who's willing to sponsor them. So for them, it's very different from engineer. But an engineer, for example, if you have engineering degree from overseas, you don't have to come here and work under supervision for 1 year until you can actually work as an engineer. No, you can just land here and tomorrow you can work as an engineer. But as I said, occupation are different.
Are nursing degrees from Kenya recognised in Australia? Or they have to come and complete conversion courses or bridging courses?
They have, nurses from Kenya have to do conversion courses. You apply to, so the process is, you apply to the for your skills to APRA for registration, and then you do the skills assessment. And for you to pass APRA, for APRA to give you the registration, you have to come and do, they have several steps, like you do the cognitive test, which is on computer, and then you have to come here and go through the hospital, and then then you do some practical exams called OBE, and then now you get the APRA, then you apply to 1 mark for skills assessment, then to immigration. It's a very long pathway at the moment for nurses coming from Kenya. I think for nurses who are in Kenya and want to migrate to Australia, I think you can go via UK and then come here. Nurses from Kenya can accept it to go to UK with English only. You get your registration in UK. Once you get your UK registration for nursing,
then you can come here.
Come here straight, no drama. So most of my clients who are calling me from nursing side, I'm telling them, let's do UK, easy, get your registration there, work for few, then come down here. While I'm here speaking, we have a big number of people who are watching us online, and shout outs to all of you who have taken your time to follow this session. We appreciate your time. And to Sharon Bumbe, who has sent this question to the team. Sorry, just came in, so she might be repeating the question. So I don't know if this question has been asked. Can someone change their course from maybe hotel management to nursing or any course in the list?
You already, I think, answered that question. It depends on people's circumstances.
All right, Sharon, it depends on the circumstances. You could change the course once your initial visa has been granted, but it depends on how you're going to justify.
It's better to go up than it is to go down.
Yeah. Another question from Braco Ozito. Shout outs to you as well for watching and taking your time to ask this question. He says, if I have some points with a person who is in regional area, will they be considered fast? So,
sorry, I didn't ask the question.
It says, if I have some points with a person who is in the regional area, would I be considered fast?
I still don't understand the question.
I
Point?
don't understand.
Does he mean partner points?
Yes. Same point. Anyway, Brasco Ozito, please drop us an email and give us more information on your question. And it is not clear, so we can't give you a comprehensive answer, but thanks for asking anyway. That's our online followers. Yes.
I have a few questions. Is professional year part of working experience?
No, it's not. It's just professional year. Basically, it's you after you finish your qualification, you actually have to go to university again. There are some universities that they provide this course for some occupation. It's not available for all occupation. And then basically it's like you study again, but then university, they usually send you for work placement. And that work placement is not considered work experience. But the good thing is when you finish the professional year, which is usually around 10 months to 12 months, you will receive 5 points. because of that. And it's specifically really good for IT occupation, because for IT, even if you study in Australia, you can't get a positive skill assessment without work experience. So you either need to have minimum 2 years experience in IT or complete a professional year. So if you're lucky, you can find a job in your field for 2 years, that's good. Otherwise, then you have to do a professional year to be able to get a positive skill assessment, and also you receive 5 points. But yeah, the work experience is not considered at professional level, and that's why it is, you don't receive employment points for that.
And for example, if you have studied here in Melbourne, is it necessary to move to regional areas to?
For what visa? For 485 visa
485.
or for a skill migration? For what visa?
I think you're asking in general, is it better to study and live and work in regional compared to the city?
Yes, it is.
I think 485, yeah. 485.
For 485, as I explained, if you must study and live in regional Victoria or Australia for at least 2 years. So if you, for example, let's say your degree is 3 years, you do 2 years in Melbourne and then go to Geelong, for example, then there is no benefit, because they assess you based on minimum 2 years.
Yeah, but for the 485, you don't have to live in regional to get the 485.
Oh, okay.
No, it means, I think, because if you live in regional, then you will receive additional year. Is that your question? So if, for example, you study in Geelong, your 485 instead of 2 years will be 3 years. So then it's more beneficial. Or if you live in Ballarat, it will be 4 years.
Yeah, so the length of the 485 is determined by where you study, whether it's regional or metropolitan Melbourne.
And live. So
And
where
live,
you
yeah.
study and live is important. But if you do that only the last 6 months before you finish your study, there is no benefit, because they look at the whole picture.
And at what point are you supposed to apply for skill visa? When
At
you are
what
on
point?
You
HM?
have, okay, so when you finish your education, usually, students come and see us. If you already have work experience from overseas or qualification from overseas, as I said before, you can even do that when you come to Australia. But if you don't have any overseas qualification and work experience, and everything you have is from Australia, of course you have to wait until you finish your student visa.
I think the real answer to your question is anyone that's here on a student visa who's just arrived should go and get a migration consultation just to see where their eligibility lies. Is what they're studying good? Is their degree back home beneficial? These things they should get out of the way at the start so they can plan forward. Do I need to change course? Do I need to do this? Do I need to gain more work experience? So
what English course,
Yeah.
what English exam do I
So-
need? And
So
you
don't
have
wait till you complete your study. As soon as you've arrived into Australia, get that consultation.
All right, yeah, I've understood.
And then when you said when someone is ready, obviously for us is we have to make sure you can get a positive skill assessment, and also you have enough points to apply, which is minimum 64.5 points. And so for that the time, there is no set timing, because it's different from, like if you're an engineer, as soon as you graduate, you don't need any work experience. So they can actually get a positive skill assessment. But if you're IT, as I explained before, you can get a positive skill assessment, because you have to either have 2 years experience or complete a professional year. So it depends on what you studied and what's your occupation.
And if you have applied for a job, for example, because later they will do a skill assessment, how will you tell that whatever you have done, you have been doing at work, will match whatever your skill, the skill that you, can I say the job that you have nominated, the work occupation? How will you tell maybe the duties of what you have been doing in a...
That's why it's important to come and see us, is to make sure that
That's our job.
what you're going to be working as matches the occupation that you're going to be claiming points for. All right, it's just like, for example, you're an accountant, but you get employed by an accounting firm as a bookkeeper. But then you want to claim points as an accountant, but you can't, because you've been working as a bookkeeper.
They think just because they have a qualification in accounting and they're working in an accounting firm, they can claim that work experience, but that's not true because you're only working as a bookkeeper. Bookkeeper is not even in the list. So if someone tells me I'm a bookkeeper, I'm like, okay, sorry, you're not eligible. But if you're an accountant, you must show that you have been working as an accountant and all your duty is relevant to accounting.
All right.
Okay, so we have a question from Isaac Aramat. Can a physiotherapist from Kenya with 3 years experience apply and get PR in Australia? And the answer to that question is, Isaac, send me your resume and I'll have a look at it. I love these yes-no questions. There's a lot more in between.
Yeah, we have to see the whole picture basically, not just what is your occupation.
Yes.
All right. I have a family who got really good points and skills assessment and all that. But one of the family members has got a long-term illness or a disability. How does that affect the immigration journey?
Okay, that's a very good question. If it's a skilled visa they're applying for, unfortunately, there is no health waiver for the medical assessment, which means if one of the applicants is deemed to have failed the health requirement, which means they go do the medical exam, the doctor writes a report to say, for example, we've detected tuberculosis in the chest x-ray, that will come back to the government here and then that health requirement will be refused. There is no waiver. When I say waiver, there are certain visas like family visas, child visas, where they give you the opportunity to say, okay, we can mitigate against these medical costs by putting together financial sponsors to pay for these costs. With skill visas, there's no waiver. So that person that has a medical condition will be refused.
So that means, say if I'm studying nursing or something really good and I know in the future I'll have a really good chance of getting visa, but I have a child with disability, does that mean...
Unfortunately for skilled migration, there is no waiver.
So I just give up on that journey?
They will refuse the visa. There is no opportunity to say, we can take care of this medical condition on our own without the Australian government. You know, we can pay for everything. They won't accept that.
All right. I've had situations where many students will receive a request for more information to comment on adverse information that has been received by immigration that they or someone provided on their behalf a bogus document.
Yep.
And these students would be advised by either an education agent or an immigration agent to withdraw the application altogether.
Yep.
Because that to immigration will mean as though the application was never made.
Yep.
And then they put a fresh application in now with genuine documents. Do they stand a chance and do their previous withdrawal affect their new application?
Okay, so the first question I would ask is, the adverse information they received, was it material particular to the outcome of the visa? In other words, that bogus document or fraudulent information, how important was it to the outcome of the application? So, for example, did they provide a fake bank account?
Let's say a bank statement or qualification.
So, if they withdraw, the law says the application is taken to have never been made, but at the same time, a case officer who's going to assess the fresh application, assuming it's the case officer, is going to know that this person put in this previous application. All right, even though the law tells this case officer, forget that the application was made. So, in a case like that, are they then going to provide a real bank statement? And if so, why did they provide a fake one in the first place, if they've already got a real one? So, the overriding answer to your question is, do not provide fake documents. The embassies will find out. And the other reason why you should not is because even if you do get away with it with a student visa, down the track when it comes to applying for another visa, if they find out you provided a fake document in that first student visa, that's enough reason to cancel the next visa. So don't do it. Eventually you will get caught.
A student has completed a Master of Public Health and they've applied for a graduate visa, but before it's granted, the student finds out that they have less chances of a skilled visa later, and instead they enroll into a Master of Social Work, which has got more avenues, and withdraw and apply for a student visa, and then withdraw the graduate visa they had applied for before it's granted. Does it affect the chances of getting a graduate visa later in the future?
No, because like I said to you, a graduate visa, there is no requirement to show that you have genuine temporary stay requirements. So as long as you meet the criteria for the graduate visa, it will be granted. All right. So as long as you meet the criteria for the 485, it will be granted, provided you've only applied for and held the 485 once.
Only once, okay.
Okay, so we have one question. Okay, so this question, it says that, for example, I have 90 points and my friend in a regional area has 90 points and we are both applying for 189 visa. Who will basically they consider first? The thing is for 189 visa, it doesn't really matter if you're, because it's not a regional visa, so it doesn't really matter if you're living in Melbourne or regional. It depends on your occupation, because not all occupation has the same ceiling. So some occupation, they're in demand, so they're accepting more applicants for that occupation. But some occupation, like for example, accountants, the ceiling, they don't have enough space basically, so you need to have higher points. So this question, I don't know if they have the same occupation, or if it's the same occupation, it doesn't really matter. Who gets the first invitation is the person who first submit the EOI, because the date of EOI is important. So if, like I'm an engineer and my friend is an engineer, my friend is in regional and I'm in Melbourne, we both have 90 applying for 189. So whoever who submit the EOI first will receive the invitation first. But if you're talking about different occupation, that as I also explained, it depends on the occupation, because not all occupation has the same priority, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it's getting really cold.
Contact information.
I will leave our cards at the end.
Yeah, we will leave our cards here.
By the way, there is tea and mandazi palette. Yusuf, I know you're in a hurry, but you go to counter if you want to go.
Okay, that's fine.
So we can actually
Monday's a Mondazi, okay.
yes, so we
What
can
does it
actually
mean?
have a hot drink. It's very cold here. I don't know if everyone else is freezing like me. But thanks for attending. And definitely we have the placards. Sorry. I was just seeing fingers and I didn't know what that meant. Anyway, so we're gonna break and have the refreshments while we continue with these conversations. If you have any questions, we are still gonna be here. You know where to find us. That is in 256 level 4. You're welcome. Fast free consultation, Queen Street, Melbourne, Victoria. Just come out at Melbourne Central. Walk up the street and wander around there. You'll be bumping into us, and you will be getting fast free consultation. So you're all welcome. So let's go and have a cup of tea as we continue with the chatting as well.
And our email address for anyone who wants to ask any questions is info@ilmaustralia.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you, lovely people, and thanks for attending. And those are the online community. We appreciate your presence as well, and you have the contact details as the way Yusuf has said it. Please drop in your questions and they will be answered. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks to the cameraman as well.
Thank you, Don. Unaona nini?
Where do you want me to leave the cards?
Oh,
I really have to go.
have a bit of.
Okay, well.
Have a mandarin. What is it? The tea. This is too much. Sophie. Oh, this is
Too much. Yeah. Okay. Actually, yeah, you're right. It's too much. And
I
that
need-
because okay, that's
I need to hold.
me.
I just need to have
This.
enough to hold. Yeah. This is the mandarin.
Let me see.
They stay in coffee here.
Oh, thank you.
Is it here? Do you want to?
Do you want anything?
No, are you going?
Gotta go.
Did we take a photo? The three of us?
Let's take a photo
Can we
now.
take a photo?
Yeah, yeah.
Where are the cameramen?
I know we didn't take a photo.